It's time to let it be easy has been my tutorial tagline since pretty much since day one. So when I saw the title of this chapter in the book that is inspiring this series, which is Leadership Not by the Book by David Green, the CEO of Hobby Lobby, I was super excited because the title of this chapter is Choose Simplicity, Not Perfection. Right up my alley, right? So there's a lot of practical wisdom in this chapter, but there were three things in particular that really caught my attention, and they weren't all what I expected them to be. Normally, I start us off with a passage from the Bible, but this time I'm going to be a little bit different because the verse that I want to talk about, the passage I want us to look at, is actually more tied with the most unexpected truth that God revealed to me through this chapter. And so, if you don't mind, I'm going to save that for the end. But before we dive into this, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this with another Christian business owner that you know would be encouraged by this kind of conversation. Okay, so like I said, there were three main concepts that really jumped out at me during this chapter. There was a lot of technical stuff in this chapter, a lot of like math talk, which if you know me, that just tends to like go over my head because you got to remember he's talking from a retail perspective, a buyer, like a merchandiser perspective. That's not me at all. That's not what my business is. And it's probably not you either. And so when he's sitting there getting into the nitty gritty of how many things they buy and why they do it a certain way and all this, I started to glaze over a tiny bit because it wasn't really something I could wrap my mind around. It's not really directly relevant in my business. He was talking about things like, having a close count, not worrying about buying the exact right amount of inventory for each store and all of that. And I'm sure if you're in the retail business in any way that would be super helpful information. And so if you are, I recommend you go get the book and read that because I'm not really going to get into any of that stuff here in detail because, like I said, it didn't really speak to me in any way. But I think that the concepts that God really enhanced or highlighted for me during this chapter, I think they apply to everyone. So one of the first things he says in this chapter is he's talking about a particular quote that they have on the wall in their corporate offices. And he says that it's like this huge, he calls it a billboard sized sign, and it's like bright white. And he also says it's the only sign in their entire complex that has his name on it. So, like, as the CEO, he's saying, guys, this is the most important thing. And what it said is keep it simple, close counts, too many choices are harmful to business. Now, I like all of that, but I wanted to key in on the too many choices are harmful to business because that's the piece that like really spoke to me. So it took me a while, and maybe you can relate to this, but it took me a while to realize that that's true for my customers. I've talked about this before last week, I think maybe, where, I had a business model at one point where I was selling self-service courses, things that people could buy and then take on their own time. And we talked already about why that wasn't a good business model because it was not enough me in the conversation, right? But I think maybe one of the bigger issues as to why that business model wasn't working for me is because there were too many options for potential customers. Not to mention, it meant a million landing pages that I had to build and write copy for because every time I had a new course, it was a new product, right? So it wasn't like I was just selling me and how I teach and then, here are your options, right? That's something I tried to kind of transition into for a while, selling more of like a membership where they had access to all the courses, thinking that the only problem was this too many options. That's when I discovered, oh no, it's also not enough me, like actual connection and relationship. But the beginning part of it was the too many choices because I feel like, and I actually know this to be true because I've had people tell me this after the fact, it felt like every other week I was selling something different. Even though from my perspective, it was just, same thing that I was trying to sell was helping make the tech more simple, take those complex ideas and break them down and make them easier to understand and less overwhelming. But doing that in different contexts, right? Because there are lots of different types of platforms that we work in. There's Trello, of course, there's email marketing. And then within email marketing, it was, well, what if you're using MailerLite, or what if you're using MailChimp, or what if so it kept feeling like my focus and what I was doing kept changing, when in reality, I didn't see it that way. But it was too many options. It was too many choices. And if there's one thing that I've learned over the years, it's that if you want somebody to actually take action on something, you need to just give them one clear next step, right? It's not necessarily a purchase. And, I think my fear at the time was, well, what if I pick the wrong next step? You know what I mean? Like, what if they're more interested in this, but I point them towards this one? Am I going to lose them? And what I learned overall, and this isn't the point of the whole conversation, so I won't get too into this, but what I learned overall was that that next step was about relationship. It wasn't about any of the products at all. It was about creating that initial connection and then allowing them to kind of absorb and see what all I'm teaching when the time is right for them, right? So that next step was just, let's make that connection. Let's get on the email list from whatever you found me from, which lately has been mostly Trello. So I realized that after a while, took a lot longer than I would have liked, but I finally realized that. And when I did, and I narrowed down to that one next step, things started opening up and the business started growing on its own. So it took me a while to realize how true that was for my customers, even though I'd had people telling me that in the past many times. So I'm sure you've heard this before, and me saying it right now might not be the moment that it clicks, but I hope that it does, because it made all the difference for me in my business. But I've only recently begun to truly understand the flip side of it, which is what David's really talking about here in this chapter. And that's that this concept applies just as much, if not more, for the business owner and for their employees. It's why when I'm helping somebody build a productivity board in Trello, or I'm evaluating something that they've already built, doing a Trello audit or something, one of the first things that I work towards with them is reducing decision fatigue. Especially as solopreneurs, there are so many things on our plate, and so many of them have priority, right? Because they're all important. They're all what makes the business go. Normally, you would delegate those to different people, and so everybody could have their own, first priority thing in their area, and then all those things would get done at the same time. Well, it doesn't work that way when it's just you, because you have to prioritize not only the first thing in all of those areas, but you also have to prioritize the areas in their order of importance. So when I'm building out a board like this, I'm trying to reduce the decisions that you have to make on any given day. I'm trying to reduce the number of choices that we have. And a lot of times the hardest part of that process is getting rid of things that are on your list that don't actually really need to be there. It's distilling it down to what is actually important versus what you're doing kind of as busy work, or because you see other people doing it and so you think that you're supposed to be doing it. We've talked many times about how I feel about the S word, should. I don't like it because I feel like it implies some level of obligation to do things a certain way. And if this book is teaching us anything, it's that you don't have to do it a certain way. You can chart your own course. You can follow the way that the Bible is laying things out for us to interact with people, employees, customers, and all of that. And, not do all the shoulds in the business world and still be a huge success. So one of the things he's talking about here is how important it is to really narrow it down so that you're only making a handful of decisions a week. One of the examples he gives is when it comes to like the merchandise, what they're going to sell and how much. I talked about this already, the close counts that they do, how much of each item they're going to have in all of their different stores. They have close to 1,000 stores while he was writing this. And at that time, he was talking about how they have 100,000 different products over let's just say 1,000 stores. That's like 1 million decisions to make every month when you're deciding how many things to ship from the warehouse. When you look at it at his scale, that's insane. You can't expect to make that many choices on a monthly basis. Now, most of us aren't anywhere near that scale, but it's relative, right? Because he's making decisions at that scale, but he's got, tens of thousands of employees that are taking on a bunch of the stuff that we're doing. If you narrow it down and realize we're doing all the things that those tens of thousands of employees are doing, so even though it's not 1 million decisions, it's equivalent, kind of, when you look at it, if we allow ourselves to have too many choices. That's why I love using things like templates, even for content creation. Before I started using templates, I had to stop and think, okay, well, should I do a social post today, or maybe I should do a blog post? Like, I never was sure, and that was like an extra choice that I had to make before taking the time to sit down, get in the flow, and write the content, right? Too much resistance to doing that. It made it not fun. It made it not something I wanted to do. But now that I have my content creation schedule and my calendar, I know exactly what I'm doing what day, and it's so much easier for me to dive in and get creative and think about it because I don't have to make those initial choices first, right? And that's just one small example of what that looks like in context for a small business owner. But that kind of leads into the second thing that really stood out from me in this chapter. So a number of times he said something along the lines of, it's not brain surgery. And the first time that he said it, he's talking about this from the perspective of, their counts of inventory and whatnot don't have to be exact. They can be close. It's because he's saying it's not brain surgery. It's not like, a millimeter off in one direction or another spells disaster, right? If you're off by a couple of, inventory, a couple of counts in inventory, it's not the end of the world. It's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world, and it's not worth spending the extra time and energy to get to perfection. And when I first read that, my initial thought was, yeah, I completely agree. But I was looking at it from the perspective of, I don't actually believe that human beings can achieve perfection on Earth. I don't think it's possible. We are fallible humans. There's no way we're going to actually achieve perfection. And pursuing that at all costs is only going to paralyze us. It's only going to stop us from moving forward and making decisions. So that was my first agreement with him on this statement. But like I said, he said it multiple times. In fact, I think he repeated it like 3 or 4 times throughout the chapter. And I felt his message shift with it throughout. And it was interesting because what I came to realize is that there's more to it than that. Like, yes, that's true. None of what I'm doing needs to be to that level of perfection. And honestly, I don't know that it's possible. But more importantly, what he's saying is it's not brain surgery. Like, it's not that important in the grand scheme of things. And I know that kind of cuts a little bit sometimes to hear that, because we like to think that what we're doing in our business is so important. And it is, don't get me wrong. But it's not life or death unless you're a brain surgeon. Then it's life or death. Totally different conversation. But if you're someone's coach, or you're teaching someone how to use something, or you're building a website for someone, or you're selling products, crafts, things that you've made, it's not life or death. It's not that important. So it kind of gets me thinking, like, don't take everything so seriously. Don't take myself so seriously. And that's really freeing for me, because I've talked about this in the past, but with what I do and having people come to me as a subject matter expert or an SME, somebody who knows everything, which I don't think they actually think that, but I feel like they think that I know everything there is to know about Trello and building the perfect process and all this stuff, and that I'm never going to be wrong and I'm never going to make a mistake. If I try to live up to that level of perfection, well, I might as well quit now, because I'm never going to. In reality, there's not really any business, if you stop and look at them, that is living up to that perfection. Not even brain surgery, I hate to say. But that's because we're human and we're not capable of that level of perfection. The most important thing, though, and I think that is so, so freeing if you really take it in and absorb it, is that it's going to be okay. If you make a mistake or something that you sell breaks afterwards and you have to fix it, or you have to, whatever it might be, it's really okay. And you don't need to take it that seriously. Nobody is expecting that level of perfection from you except for you. And then the last thing that really got my attention from this chapter, and this is the one where we are going to go into the Bible, is that we need to focus on faith, not fear. Now, we hear all the time, what you focus on, you find. And I 100% believe that's true psychologically. I don't know how or why it all works, but anytime I've been in the market for a new car or whatever, the one that I'm interested in suddenly shows up everywhere, all over the road. So I absolutely believe that that's true. But when it comes to our business and the things that scare us going into starting a new business or moving to maybe a next level of our business, we need to be more intentional about what we focus on. So we're going to go into a book of the Bible that I don't find myself going to very often, but I feel like there's a lot more wisdom in here than I was remembering or realizing. So we're going into Numbers, and we're in chapter 13. And we're going to start with verse 25. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit. Overall, we're going to be doing like 25 to 31, but skipping a little bit along the way. And then I'm also going to jump ahead to a little bit of a passage in Numbers 14. So this is all in the NLT version. And for context, this is when Moses and the Israelites, who have been traveling from Egypt on their way to Canaan, which is the land that the Lord had set aside for them. They've just gotten there, nearby, and they send in a bunch of scouts to look around, see what the land is like, see what the people are like, because they're going to have to conquer this land and, take it. And so, Moses sends in these scouts, and he sends, I think, 10 scouts, if I remember correctly. And this is kind of their reporting, the way that they came back. So it says, after exploring the land for 40 days, the men returned to Moses, Aaron, and the whole community of Israel at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. They reported to the whole community what they had seen and showed them the fruit they had taken from the land. This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces. I think it was grapes. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. Now, skipping ahead, but Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once to take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. So now jumping into chapter 14. So at this point, like all the Israelites were listening to the ones who were scared and saying, there's no way we can do this. They're bigger, they're stronger, whatever. Instead of listening to Caleb and Joshua, who wasn't mentioned there, but who said, no. Yes, they're big and scary. There were giants there, but God has promised us this land, right? And so we should take it. We should trust him. And so the Israelites, of course, listened to the ones who were scared, and the Lord wanted to punish them. Moses intercedes on their behalf. He prays and says, just forgive them. Basically, they don't know what they're doing. They're just scared and everything. So he does that. He intercedes, and this is God's response to Moses. Then the Lord said, I will pardon them as you have requested. But surely as I live, and as surely as the earth is filled with the Lord's glory, not one of these people will ever enter that land. They have all seen my glorious presence and the miraculous signs I performed both in Egypt and in the wilderness, but once again they have tested me by refusing to listen to my voice. They will never even see the land I swore to give their ancestors. None of those who have treated me with contempt will ever see it. But my servant Caleb has a different attitude than the others have. He has remained loyal to me, so I will bring him into the land he explored. His descendants will possess their full share of that land. And like I said, Joshua was with Caleb in that. I'm not sure why he's not mentioned there. I think he might have been mentioned at another spot. But you can see here that all 10 or whatever of these people went in and they saw the same land. They saw all the same good things that God had always promised would be there. They saw the same scary giants and big people that they were going to have to conquer in order to take this land the way that they were meant to. Most of them focused only on their fear. They focused only on what they didn't think they could do. These people are bigger and stronger. There's no way that we can conquer them. And they're right. But what they're forgetting is what Caleb mentions, and that is that we're not conquering them, not us on our own. God is doing it. We just have to have the faith to step into that battle the way that he has commanded us to, so that he can do the hard part, right? He can do the conquering, and we can actually have this land that he promised. And I think that that's so easy to relate to, because we often look at other people who are running businesses, and, you know, especially with social media, we see only the things that they want us to see, which in most cases, although I have to say I feel like it's gotten better over the years. People are trying to be a little more real and authentic on their socials, but you see a lot of their successes and, you know, how well they're doing. And when you think about trying to compete with them, and not even conquering them, but just trying to find your place in the same space that they're playing in, it's easy to feel like, well, they're bigger, stronger, better, smarter, right? They already have all the customers. I'm not going to get any, all those things. And the reality is that, yeah, on our own, we probably can't achieve that. But that's because God gives us callings that are too big for us to handle on our own, so that we trust enough in him to take the step and let him do the rest. That's literally the point of why he calls us the way that he calls us. So when we let ourselves get caught up in the fear of all the hard that is ahead, which is there, it's real, then we're just going to stop ourselves, and we're going to end up like the Israelites, who ended up having to wander in the desert, never to get to enjoy this land at all. They never got to set foot in it, except for Caleb and his family, because Caleb was faithful, because Caleb trusted in God and knew that, yes, he was scared of these giants too, but that it wasn't up to him, it was up to God, and he knew that God was big enough to handle it. So that was the unexpected out of choose simplicity, not perfection. I did not see that coming in this chapter, that insight, but it was so impactful to me. So I had to make sure to bring that out and share it with you. But to close this all out, I wanted to take us back to more of the practical beginning of this episode, the point of the whole chapter, which is to keep things simple, to not overcomplicate, to keep ourselves from having so many choices to make on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that it ends up leaving us paralyzed. So, especially if you are feeling overwhelmed in your business right now, I just want you to ask yourself, how can I lower the number of choices that I make in my business every week? Love to hear your answer in the comments. Thanks for watching this episode all the way to the end, and I hope that you liked it, and more importantly, that you found it helpful. If you did, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with another Christian business owner that you know is going to love it as much as you did. God bless you.